Welcome to the Craft Cocktail. I'm Derek Schomer. Today we're going to show you a little bit about how you can make your own gin at home. I'm going to do a small sample size, a 4-ounce sample. So in most cases, you could just double the recipe that I'm going to give you here, triple it, quadruple it, or just buy your own gin at the store. We're going to do this with a rapid infusion. This is called an ISI or an ISI Whipper. You typically would use this for a whipping cream to make your own whipped cream for ice creams, for I don't know if you're a baker, anything like that. I'm not a huge baker, but I do like cocktails. And this little additional doohickey here is really designed by the ISI folks to work for those that have decided to use this as an infusion device. We're going to infuse it using this specific device alongside the ISI cream chargers. These are different from carbonation. Carbonation chargers or soda chargers are in a different box. They use CO2. These use NO2, so it doesn't give a carbonated flavor to it, which would not really fit this specific example. The recipe that I've built here is a little bit of an adaptation of some Jeffrey Morgenthaler recipes from some other recipes I saw, and then a little bit of my own twist to it. So what I'm going to do here for my recipe for 4 ounces of vodka is 1.5 teaspoons of juniper berries, a full teaspoon of elderflower, a half a teaspoon of cassia chips, cinnamon chips, 1 cardamom pod, a few zest of orange and lemon, and a rosemary sprig, or 2. I don't really know. It's just a pile of rosemary I had growing in my herb garden. That's really all we're going to use for ingredients. This sets up for a good base. So you can add on, you can change out specific ingredients as you see fit. For instance, you could use an allspice. You could use, which I see in a lot of recipes, is coriander seeds. I tried creating this exact variant with coriander seeds, and it was very earthy. A lot of mineral, earthy texture to it, a little bit of like a eucalyptus. It didn't have the same gin punch that I was looking for with the juniper, so either you have to tail back a little of the coriander or bring up your juniper. So because I'm using the ISI Whipper, and I'm going to do a rapid infusion where I'm going to be pressurizing this, I'm going to crush up the juniper seeds, and I'm going to crush up the cardamom pod, which you typically have to crush up those pods anyway. Juniper berries, if you're doing a soak, you could kind of leave them in their normal form, but I found you get a much more vibrant juniper forward flavor if you break them up before you put them in the ISI. So you can pestle and mortar them. What I found works pretty well is I stick them in a little napkin and hit them with a hammer. The other alternative is throw them in a Ziploc bag and whack them with a hammer and you're good. So let's crush that stuff up and we'll put that in here first. So as we unfold this little guy here, you'll see that they're crushed up nice. They don't have to necessarily be dust. They really just need to have some way for the liquid to infuse inside of them and then be pulled out. The way an NO2 pressurized system is going to work is it's going to take the vodka, which we're going to use some effing vodka, use whatever vodka you have, and that vodka is going to get pressurized into the seeds. And then when you evacuate the pressure, it's going to pull out with it all the flavor and a little bit of the nuance of the juniper. Add this into the mix. We'll do the same thing with the cardamom pod. So there you go, that guy's nice and crushed up. Just throw the whole pod right in there. Seed and all. Shell, whatever. Don't go crazy if you're going to make a small sampler to kind of mess around with. 1 cardamom pod is enough. 2 is going to overkill and it's going to taste super cardamom forward. Add some citrus peel. Make sure you carve off any of the white pith that's under it, because it makes things bitter. We'll throw our rosemary in since it's within reach. And then the remaining ingredients into the mixture. Once you have that, measure out your 4 ounces of vodka. It doesn't have to be perfect. This infusion is going to work if it was 4 or 5 ounces. It's probably going to work with 8 too. These are very vibrant herbs. But I tested it with 4 because I didn't want to go overboard. I wanted to figure out what the specific flavor I was looking for. Now what you want to do is just swirl it around, let all the liquid get there. The more liquid you actually use in here, the better infusion you're going to get because there's not an air gap. So the sample size, while it's convenient for sampling and tasting, you'll get a better infusion, I think, if you add just a little bit more, if you went up to 8. This little guy here holds up to 1 US pint. All my herbs and spices, I have links below that will send you over to Mountain Rose Herbs. I have an affiliate link, so if you click on them, maybe I'll eventually make money on it. I don't really know. I just did it because I could. But this is the ones I use for everything. I've got all spices. I've got cardamom pods. Can't say that word. I got juniper berries, elderflower. cassia chips. If you just have regular old cinnamon, just break it up and make it a chip. Don't go out and buy cassia chips just to have the chips. Elderflower I have a lot of. That's why I use it in this recipe. And elderflower pairs well in a gin and tonic, so I thought this would be a good pairing. Now what we're going to do is we're going to load on the top. I've already got the infuser on there. If you don't have the infusion attachment, you can just add the regular attachment it comes with, and just be careful when you blow out the NO2 that it doesn't get all over the place. Now you've got your liquid. You're going to put 2 cartridges in here. If you're not using an ISI, if you're using a different brand, I'd suggest sticking with just 1 single cartridge. I can't judge the quality of those. I know the quality of this is good. You don't want to overfill these, because if they blow up, I think it's going to be painful. Let's add the NO2. That's 1. What I typically do now is, after you have the 1, is just really integrate it. Give it a couple stirs. Don't get too crazy or it'll probably drip out a little bit, even though there's pressure in there and it locks the seal. I've seen a little drippage. And drippage ain't good. Done. Give it another little stir. I usually let it sit for about a minute just to kind of think about what it's done and get a little bit more of that infusion in there. So what we're going to do first is we're going to let out the gas. Let it depressurize. Then we'll strain out all the big particles, get those out of there. Then we'll fine mesh strain it to get a little bit more clean. Let's do this. All right, now is the fun part. Let's clean it out. One of the things to consider here, especially if you're not using organic citrus, is your lemon and your orange typically have a wax coating around them that keeps them lasting in the store a lot longer. So you really need to remove that wax coating, since the whole goal is to be able to infuse that. You don't want the wax floating in there. You do want the oils to get expressed. So you want that zestiness. So what I do is I run them under really hot water, or you can boil some water, and I let them sit in there for a few minutes, pull them out, clean them off, put them in there again, pull them out, clean them off until like that sticky residue is gone. And you'll be able to tell as you're rubbing it, you're like, what is that? Remove all that and you're going to get immediately a huge blast of citrus smell, and you could tell it's working. That's when I peeled the zest off and I put it in the mix. Looks like we got most of this out. You can press it down if you want to try and express some more from the citrus, but we'll just call this good for now. Let's get rid of this. So we want to remove some of those floaties, and I'm going to do that through using a cheesecloth. I'm just going to use this to support it a little bit. Stick the cheesecloth in there, a couple layers of that, re-pour through, and just get out some of those floaties. Looks like pieces of cassia cinnamon chip. Looks like a little bit of a cardamom pod. It just gives it a better presentation. You don't get weird floaties in your drink. Since we just finished the vodka series and we're going to be moving on to the gin series, I thought it would be kind of appropriate to take a vodka and build a gin out of it. You can also use a neutral grain spirit. If you use something like Everclear, 151 proof or above, you're going to get a much more solid infusion, but you're going to get a very potent outcome. So what you could do is cut that with water. I'm too lazy. I didn't want to do the math to figure out how to cut that down to 40 ABV, so I decided, hey, let's just use the vodka. It's already cut to the right level, and you're good to go. Now, it won't be too boozy, but if you were to create a true traditional gin with a neutral grain spirit, they would use a high-proof neutral grain spirit to build their infusion, and then they would be able to cut that down to where they need it to be. One of the beauties of using a cheesecloth is you can wring it out and get some more of those trapped juices. Because the herbal qualities have made their way into the drink, you could try running this through a Brita filter a whole bunch of times to kind of clear it out. The more times you run it, the less flavor you're going to get. It's going to keep stripping away at that flavor. The end result won't be as vibrant, but it will be clear. So if you like clear products, you can go that way. However, if you're doing your own gin at home, the discovery and the flavors and all the recipe that you've been able to master, I think, is more important than the specific color, especially when you bring it to most cocktails. It's going to be gold anyway. If you make your own homemade tonic, it's going to be gold anyway, because a tonic has the same type of situation. Has a really bright cardamom smell to it. Cardamom, juniper, almost like a mint. Just the way everything's playing, and a little bit of citrus in there. But this, it smells more like a London Dry than, say, an American, even though we use some good amount of peel in there. It is bright. It's strong, it's vibrant, it has that juniper. It also still balances across that earthy flavor of the cardamom. The beauty of making your own is you could push up the juniper if you like a more juniper forward flavor. If you'd like more the American style, bring in more citrus peel, maybe some lime, maybe some grapefruit. Kind of play it up on the citrus side and downplay that juniper a little bit. Use half as much juniper and get a completely different flavor out of it. The elderflower adds a nice back-end floral aroma, but it doesn't bring sweetness like you'd get from an elderflower liqueur. So you're going to definitely be playing in a completely different realm when you're working with dry ingredients like this. Now, is it economical to go out and spend like $60 on big piles of herbs and other spices to be able to mess around? No, it's probably not economical, but it definitely is educational. And there's something to be said, especially if you're a bartender, to be able to make your own flavor infusions and pair your own house cocktails. If you're at home and you want to give somebody a completely new and unique experience, being able to design your own gin the way you like it gives you much more appreciation for the product, and it gives you the ability to understand flavor pairings and how they can specifically play out in a cocktail. This gin is going to taste different in a gin and tonic than a Beefeater or a New Amsterdam or a Bombay Sapphire. Everybody's got their own nuances and recipes. The beauty of doing it this way is you can make a larger batch once you've perfected the recipe you like the best. This is all about you and tailoring it to your style. Want more cinnamon? Add cinnamon. Want a little bit of allspice? Bring in some allspice. Or you can take all these ingredients, put them into a bowl and let them set 24, 48 hours and taste test it and see when it goes from tasting like a kind of a boozy vodka to more of a gin. It's a pretty fun experience. I highly suggest you give it a try. Over here is a video I suggest you watch next. This is potentially the last time I'm going to tell you about this vodka ebook that's down below. After that, I'm going to be rolling out the gin ebook. It's ready to go. I just got to get it edited and published. That's how we suggest you rapidly infuse your own gin.